All right, I think we will get started now and get rolling. I'm going to end the poll, share the results here. So you can see where we ended up. It looks like a lot of folks are growing new business and leveraging the base business, and some even executing a retention strategy as well. Oh, I got to share that with you. It looks like that seems to be the commonplace and where folks are working on at this point. Interesting, and all good strategies. I don't think there's a bad strategy up there. And we'll touch base on a lot of these today, and we'll get in and share with you what we think about each and what we're seeing our clients do as well. So welcome everyone. We are going to be talking top line strategy and revenue growth, and as mentioned, we'll touch on this and a lot of these things as we get rolling along here. I am going to let me get that pull down. I am Bill Morrow. I oversee the sales and marketing component of Empirical Consulting Solutions, and I am going to be your moderator for the day. The format's going to look like this. We will run through a few slides, and we'll be presenting and discussing back and forth in a conversational manner what we are seeing out there from our clientele, and sharing with you some best practices that we are seeing and engaging with our clients, and where they are seeing success. We are going to be doing a series today. The series is going to be 3 parts. This one is the top line revenue and strategy session. Next month, we'll be doing one on finance and operating efficiencies and driving those efficiencies. And then in November, we'll be managing talent and human capital. So that's what we'll be doing today. And you can, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A button. You can click that, ask us questions at any time. We'll try to work those in as we have discussions, and be able to work in anything that you have or any questions you have. It's a free flow, and we're happy to have that conversation with you at that time. We're going to talk for about 30 minutes, about total 30 minutes. We are recording this, and we will share it back with you. So if there's something you hear or see today that you want to share with somebody else, or you just want to have a copy of it, you will be getting it. So for those of you who don't know Empirical, we are a lower mid-market to mid-market consultancy firm. We focus in on not only the strategy, but also the execution piece and helping our clients get to the next level and grow their businesses. We're currently working with about 85 clients and growing. We've worked with, in our almost 10 years of existence, 300 or so clients. And again, across a multitude of different industries and industry types. We don't focus in on any one industry, but we do work within that lower mid-market and mid-market arena. We have seen our shares of ups and downs in that 10-year time frame. And prior to that, we all worked in corporate companies, large companies, and we've seen our ups and downs there as well. So we're going to share our thoughts on recession and uncertainty in the economy, and things that you can do to grow and affect your business. And again, like I said, we'll be sharing what we see and some of the higher, better points that we've seen from some of our clients. So I will hand it over to AJ and let him introduce himself. So AJ.
Thanks, Bill. I'm AJ Joshi. I lead the sales operations practice at Empirical. So my team has helped mid-market companies over the years execute on revenue strategies and get more out of the investment in tools, processes, and people. I bring over 20 years of experience working across industries, everything from Fortune 50 companies to startups. And having guided and led businesses through at least 3 economic downturns now, I, like my fellow panelists, have learned a few things. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Thanks, AJ. Chris.
Well, thanks, Bill. Welcome, everybody. Like AJ, I've been in Fortune 100 companies for the last 20 years. And additionally, for the last 10 years, I've been with ECS working with a lot of our mid-sized companies, helping them really accelerate their top line and their bottom line through the years. So really looking forward to this afternoon's discussion. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Chris. All right, so let's just jump right in and start the conversation. And let's start with what we're seeing and what's going on in the marketplace. So overall, lots of things going on. It's affecting a lot of businesses. What are you seeing? AJ, let's start with you. What are you seeing out there? What are your clients seeing, and what's affecting them the most?
Yeah, if there's one thing that was telling, Bill, when we announced this webinar, we got a lot of responses to our newsletter, just the very topic of the webinar being recession. And not everyone's on the same page whether it should be called a recession. So whatever you call it now, the big topics today are inflation, costs going up, difficulty finding talent. And so that is across the board, across industries. Now, depending on whether we're talking about small or large companies or industry sector, they're seeing the impacts of the downturn differently. Larger companies already are talking about layoffs, which you're not hearing as much on the lower and the mid-market companies. But I do think that trend-wise, there's a lot of uncertainty there. And one of the reasons why we're having this discussion today is just to provide some guidance while we're going through that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. There is a lot of uncertainty and not sure what direction or what's happening at this point, but there's a lot of things affecting the market. Chris, what are you seeing as well?
Well, a lot of the CEOs, the word that is really coming out is volatility. In the last 3 years, the volatility, if you think about the tariff increases, the pandemic, obviously wages rising, inflation, as AJ touched on, they're grappling with how do I handle this much volatility in a short period of time? What models can I apply and what strategies can I apply? So there are a lot of the discussions of what I'm hearing at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back, we talk about lessons learned and kind of talking to our next slide. What are you seeing? Are there definite winners and losers, AJ, in this world when things change and things move around?
Oh, definitely. You've got your people who are proactive and those who are in denial, right? That would be the two extremes, and everyone in between. So Bain did a study they tracked over 13 years of data, companies going through two economic downturns. And they saw some distinct differences between those who did well and those who did not. And they split them up into winners and losers. Winners have 14% year-on-year growth, while the losers just stay where they are. And what they find is there's 3 reasons for why companies fail during downturns, right? There are 3 strategies that don't work. The first, which we've all experienced at some point, is the slash and burn. Cut R&D costs across the board, slash marketing and sales, because those seem to be easy. The very things that will allow them to get out of the hole, they cut off. The second is they go all into one product or one service line, and that is not the right bet. So all-in approach, those don't work either. And the most common reason for why companies fail is they just wait too long and they don't do anything. And so they end up being reactive to all the changes that happen, drop in demand, the cash flow issues. You've seen that movie before.
Yeah. Yeah. And Chris, I would imagine you see something fairly similar. What are you seeing as to why some companies seem to do well in downturns or economic uncertainty and others don't?
Well, I looked at 5 companies that we do strategic planning with, just took a mixed basket in the energy, the industrials, distribution and manufacturing, kind of making up that market basket. One word that we'll add here, we look at the proactive, but they're extremely decisive. And, we've all heard the adage, if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. And these are 5 that have been embracing strategic planning for the last 5 to 7 years. And it's amazing when you look at their initial lift after the strategic planning, they're getting growth of net of 30%. And over those 5 years, they've netted out to 15 to 17% year over year growth. So It's tremendous growth, and they've really perfected execution of those strategic plans.
Wow. Yeah, those are pretty incredible results, and I know we see that over and over. And kind of shifting here, you touched on it a little bit there, but it's not a back of the napkin type of strategic plan, or it's a vision and everyone pulls toward this vision and everyone knows what we want. But you kind of touched on, there's really a formalized strategic plan there that's in place that really makes the difference. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, most of these teams are committing anywhere from 2 to 3 teams with their senior leadership and going through a full process to really come out with their competitive advantages and their table stakes that are going to really drive and make a difference and give them that differential. That's the key word there too, in the marketplace.
Yeah. Finding their advantages and their what and starting from there and knowing what to do and putting together a formalized strategic plan that's really made the difference. I want to touch on the model, and we'll shift gears a little bit, but this is the model that Empirical uses for the basis of strategic planning and also as our growth model. Chris, do you want to talk to this a little bit?
Absolutely. Look, these are the 4 pillars of growth. When you talk about whether you're using strategic planning or not, or in your budget process, many of you are probably in your budget process for next fiscal 23. And this is really how you do your revenue walk, right? You're going to break it down by new business, base business, retention, and any M&A activity. And that's really going to give you your revenue walk and growth projections for future years.
Yeah, one thing that's important, I think, here is this is part of a culture. It's part of work that you do year on year. Right? This is not let's wait till things get bad and then start doing these things. So the effectiveness of using a tool like this is improved the sooner you do this. So the advice here is don't wait too long to do this work, because the effect of this will only show up maybe 6 months to a year later.
You're exactly right. Great point.
Yeah, and we had talked about, and it's become really evident here recently, the ones that do strategic planning, and then you had mentioned it at the beginning, Chris, come back together and have at least a quarterly review of where things stand, and holding each other accountable really seems to be a major driver in strategic planning and execution.
Yeah, it's not just making that investment in the first 2 or 3 days and then set it and forget it. It's doing those deployment strategies and execution strategies throughout the year that really makes a difference.
Yeah, that's a great point. AJ, I know something near and dear to your heart, and as we've worked with some technology and some SaaS companies here recently, is that retention and knowing where to focus. What's your advice and direction on retention? We saw several people talk about retention being important to them as well. What's your takeaway on retention?
Yeah, so having a plan to actively manage your customers is critical during a downturn. I mean, if you are not actively managing your churn, if you're not measuring it, if you don't have a strategy going into it, you're going to find out that you'll be reactive to it. So, the way we work with our clients is not a one size fits all approach for all your clients. But we say, considering both the risk of the churn and the impact to your business of that churn, you can have segmented strategies. So for those of you not familiar with the term, churn is a rate at which your customers leave your business. They don't renew contracts or they cancel them in some cases. So the first part of this is to implement an active monitoring system, an early warning system, if you may, to catch the churn before it happens. Don't find out after your customers have left you. And how do you do that? More customer surveys. NPS scores have been very popular recently. Actively managing your social media. One thing it's very easy to do with tools today is to see your newsletters unsubscribes. It just requires you to pay more attention to the data now. And finally, more frequent check-ins from your salespeople. Put them to get in touch with your customers. Are they happy with your service? Is there anything more you can do with them? So this becomes especially important during a downturn. And then the next step is to have a risk segmented strategy to managing that churn. So the graph there shows one of our SaaS clients and their business. The top 30 customers have a disproportionate portion of their revenues and profits. And so their approach to the customers that are at the top end is going to be different from those at the bottom end. They can do more at that top end. They can do things like price discounting, offering more incentives for them to renew, maybe volume packages. They don't have to do that at the bottom end, where losing those customers isn't as impactful. So the bottom line when it comes to churn and downturns is you're going to have to tolerate some level of churn. Just need to make sure it's not your top customers.
Yeah. So, and this is, while this is a SaaS company that you're talking about with churn here, this is applicable even across the board. We've seen this in many of our customers. I see you guys both agree. It doesn't matter if you're in manufacturing or
it doesn't. It doesn't. All this data is available. I've worked with manufacturing companies who've got a very similar profile as well. It's not the MRR ARR model. It's different types of contracts, but I do think the process of actively measuring and monitoring your customers is key.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good stuff. Now I'm going to circle back. Chris, you made the point that it was really important to have a strategic plan in place and to be able to drive that business. And we want to kind of take a look at one of your clients that you had referenced earlier that really took this to heart and kind of talk about how they did that.
Yeah, to give everybody the context a little bit, this is an HVAC distributor. And if you see the line here in 2017, 2018, they were really stagnant on their gross profit. So this is where we held a strategic plan. And some of the levers that we wanted to, really is come up with a pricing strategy, get a little deeper in stratifying the data a bit. And what you can see here on the right side is the equipment sold from 2020 and how much equipment was being purchased. So we have about 2,500 clients. Only 233 in 2020 were buying equipment. In 2021, those clients jettisoned with our strategy based on VOC, which we'll get into a little bit later, jumped from 233 to 896, and the number of units went from 745 over 3,100 units. That's tremendous. But the big win here too was revenue on that side, but the gross profit. Look at the gross profit jump and over the pandemic. So this was also part of our downturn of the pandemic, reset with our clients that you can buy equipment and supplies from us, not just supplies.
Right.
So if you flip to the next slide.
And that all started, just to make a point, with your conversation using that growth model, looking at those 4 components and then pulling that out of there. Yeah.
Building strategies, objectives, and action plans to drive this.
Right.
And really leveraging the VOC. So one of the first things we did is start to grade our customers of the 2,500. And you can look at the mix from 2020 to 2021. And we broke those down to A, B, C's, D's by spend. And you can look at the mix when the strategy was being implemented. And what we could tell from the data was the C customers here, the 1633. What we knew was they pay with cash. They had no space for inventory, and they grow from one truck to multiple trucks. So these are contractors buying from a distributor. So the strategy is to reach out to these 1633, a good sample size, over 300 that we actually have reached out to, and what would make them buy equipment from us. And the 3 insights, top insights: free on-site delivery to where it was being installed, 1 hour pickup if they were going to come to one of the stores that was already loaded, picked, and going to be put in their truck, and they needed to establish credit. That was key. And when we made these changes, look at the change in mix. Think back to the first slide. We received a year-over-year revenue growth of 37%. And put that in combination to the gross profit lift. This is tremendous. We've accelerated their growth and accelerated their profit and made a lot of happy customers and really converted over customers just buying supplies. Now they buy supplies and equipment.
And you said something key there. You started by identifying a target audience, but you started immediately with the voice of the customer and asking those questions. And
Yep.
and I think too often we see, and AJ, I'd be interested in your thoughts too, that we downplay doing voice of the customer as business owners because we think we know our clients. But I know you've had success as well, having conversations and chats, right?
Oh, hugely. I think the voice of the customer, often it's better to bring in someone from the outside to do your VOC surveys because they can be a little bit more objective. And some of what you glean is through conversations versus forums that go back and forth. And I think we have seen so much of a difference in when companies listen to their customers and adjust their strategies. I mean, that year-on-year growth that Chris showed in the previous slide wasn't doing the same thing every year for 5 years. It's actually adjusting every year, listening to your clients, making shifts. So it's an iterative approach. And the longer your cycles are until you talk to your customers, the more you miss between those cycles. So your outcome is actually much diminished if you don't have frequent VOC work.
Right. Right.
And especially important during times of volatility. Things are changing. Where are your customers at today? It's really important to know that.
Right. Good stuff. No, it's really incredible results and great points, AJ, on VOC and understanding where your clients are because things are changing so rapidly. It's really critical that you stay on top of them and talk to them on a regular basis. So along those lines, we touched on it briefly, but let's get into it. Is pricing? This is a loaded question, but AJ, how important is pricing to the world today?
Hugely important. So obviously with inflation, costs have been going up for businesses for a while now. And if you don't have an active pricing management strategy, you're already behind the 8 ball. Most of our clients have done some level of pricing adjustment over the past few years after the pandemic, and they've been able to justify them. But many of them have not been as aggressive as they need to be, given the level of inflation that we've had. So McKinsey did a study of just looking at the number of times price management was discussed in the quarterly reports of publicly traded companies. And the results are quite telling. The more profitable companies, those in the top quartile, talk about pricing twice as much as those in the bottom quartile. And that shows not only in their profitability, but also in their growth year on year. So what's also interesting about this is the revenue change is not that different between the top and the bottom quartile. Everyone's making more money than they did before, but guess what? The costs have gone up. So the bottom quartile is actually a lot less profitable than the top.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. The ones that have the focus here, are making are producing the more profitable businesses and having the best results overall. Chris,
and there's so much to this. I mean, just going back to what we had talked about before, which is you don't apply the same price cuts across the board. You have to be smart about this. Or you can't have the same price increases across the board either. It's really important to maintain brand value during this time as well, even when things are tough. So watch the space. This is going to be really critical. You've got 2 things working against you. One is inflation, and the second is a potential recession, which are both going to put a lot of pressure on pricing.
Right. Right. Yeah, Chris, I know you have a ton of experience in doing this from your days at Aramark to with multitude of your clients here. What is the greatest fear with pricing, and why don't people take a little bit more active approach to it?
Well, a lot of that is the fear of confronting the customer and really being transparent. And I think that's the key of why the increase is necessary. I can tell you it's important when you're getting just recently with the tariffs, sharing, the supplier letters with the clients for the purpose of why the increase is going through. So there's a lot of fear, with pricing that may be an impetus for clients to change. So as far as the fear, it's one of those things you have to have a good plan in place And I call it a good client communication plan of why you're doing what you're doing. If you're just going there, hitting the button every day, yeah, you're going to get some fall off. But you can be very strategic. I think grading your customers is critical in how you increase. So, and if you're going to get traction on your price management process. So,
right. No, great insight. Shubham made a comment here that I'll share with everyone. You know, reading customer comments regularly daily has tremendously helped to generate VOC insights. That's, yeah, I think we'd all agree that that's tremendous. If you can read those comments and solicit those comments on a regular basis, daily, weekly, monthly, that's tremendous, especially in the world today that things are changing so rapidly. You'll learn, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Chris, but I think you learn from your clients that there are opportunities, new opportunities that pop up even in bad times that may not have been there before. So.
Agreed. Yeah, downturns are opportunities, and if you look for to leverage those, I think that's when you separate. When I look at quality, great clients versus those who kind of linger. It's those that look at these downturns as an opportunity and how can I leverage that?
You know, this is also a great opportunity to leverage the value proposition. If you're just selling based on price, you're commoditizing your business, and many businesses have been commoditized over years. I think that the challenge here is, okay, things may be getting tougher soon. So if you're not showing some point of differentiation to your clients, you're going to be having to fight the price wars.
Right. That's a good point. So let's go anti-pricing sales. You know, I can say that being a sales guy myself. Sales never wants to see a price increase, right? We want the price to stay flat or go down because it makes our jobs easier. But it is part of the overall business, and many people put that they were driving and generating new logos and new business. And to do that, you have to have an engaged sales team. So, AJ, I'm gonna start with you. What do you do with a sales team? How are you supposed to drive a sales group to get better results in a downturn?
So a big part of what happens in the downturn is demand at some point starts tapering away, and businesses start looking at sales as being one of the levers to pull. Okay, maybe we need fewer salespeople because we have less demand, and that is a vicious cycle. What I recommend for all clients is to really look at the effectiveness of your current sales team and really get more out of the sales team. An easy way to look at this is the percent of time your sales team are actually spending selling versus doing other activities. And it's a metric that's being used increasingly more frequently because the data is easier to get a hold of. In this example, one of our clients, an auto parts manufacturer, we had their sales team log their time for 4 weeks. Right? These are account managers that have been filling in Outlook how they spend their days. And the results of that 4-week study were quite telling. Management was a little surprised when they heard that sales team is spending only 34% of their time in actual sales related activities. They were expecting them to be more. This was not surprising to us, by the way, because this is a number that Bill and I have seen quite often. And there's things you can do about this, right? So the first, in this case, the obvious one was to really pull in technology to their advantage. And they invested in a working CRM system that really took away some of the paperwork that a lot of these salespeople were spending time on, paperwork, reporting, repetitive tasks. And it gave management a better visibility on the business so they could make better decisions. The other, in this particular case, was the role of the salesperson wasn't clearly defined when it came to service responsibilities. So some of the customer service responsibilities were moved away from the sales team into the service organization. And that also allowed them more time. The one thing which I think every business should think about is how much time do your salespeople spend in meetings. This particular client, when I showed up, they told me how they have a hour-long meeting every morning with the sales team. And this is an entire 15-person sales team in a room going through their numbers with management. And what a waste of time. That's 12.5% of a week. And so taking away those repetitive tasks that really don't add value is really important. So after all this, in about 6 months, they were able to increase the percent of time spent selling from 34% to 47%, which is a good standard. More importantly, they're able to increase their quota attainment across the entire team by 9%.
Yeah, that's those are great numbers, and 47%, 50% is world class. So that's pretty close to world class up there. Chris, you and I have talked about this a lot, about improving sales effectiveness and making sure you understand what role your salespeople are playing. You had some thoughts in and around those roles and improving results based on what the roles they play.
Well, I'll tell you, over the course of my 30 years, I've always find it difficult to find a hunter or a sales hunter who can be everything, right? Generate leads, nurture the leads to get to a close, and then be the closer. So a lot of clients that I've been working with lately are shifting. They're designating someone on their team just to generate leads, and that's their expertise. They have those skills to be able to do that. They have the phone, the email skills that are very, as you know, Bill, great skills to have. And then turning those leads to the rest of the sales team to nurture. And a lot of sales managers in the smaller organizations are joining the close process and being kind of the closer. So this is how they're dividing and conquering. And to AJ, this is great data. This is how they're using some of the idea flow that you have and really becoming a much more effective sales organization and having lift in their top line revenue and obviously new logos.
Yeah. And it really doesn't make a difference, does it, as well, Chris? You've seen this in big companies and small companies.
Absolutely. I did it in my days of Aramark, made that change across the country. And we were always getting at least 20% or higher year-over-year growth from our sales team when we made that change.
And we had a discussion recently about a 3-person sales group that one of the person went over to a sales hunter role and the 2 other sales account managers, and great results.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What were you gonna say, AJ? I cut you off.
Oh, no worries. I just kind of what Chris said hit a chord. One of the big changes more recently have been the alignment between sales and marketing. And so marketing effort is now put into bringing the right type of leads to sales. It's not a function that sits in a silo and makes pretty websites there that are actually tied into revenue generation. This has already been going on in the enterprise level companies. You're seeing that a lot more focus on that in the mid-market.
Yep.
That's a great point. Yeah, the lead gen is very specific and much more about getting high quality, good qualified leads over to the sales team. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, guys, I think we ran a little bit over, and so I'm going to pull it to a close. But I thank you for the time and the insight. I think everyone on the call would agree. It's been insightful, and obviously we enjoy talking about this and could talk all day, but we will keep to what we told everyone on our agenda, that we keep it around 30 minutes. So we're open for any questions that you have. Happy to answer anything that you might have. And I will also throw up our contact information. If there's anything that pops up or any questions that you have that you want to ask us individually, feel free to reach out to any of us at any time. Our emails are there, and so is our website. Anything in closing that you would like to say? Chris, we'll start with you.
Well, I think it goes back to being proactive and decisive. I mean, if I had to summarize our conversation and really, given the volatility, this is not a time to hesitate. You want to do your due diligence, but once you've done your planning, be decisive and proactive in that approach.
Thanks. AJ. anything you want to leave everyone
Yeah,
with?
I mean, obviously being proactive is key here. The other thing is also to continue to invest in the right tools, the right processes. So a downturn doesn't mean you just freeze and just wait for things to happen. You have time now. Things are not as bad as they could be. And so this is the time to start. So don't wait. That would be my biggest piece of advice now.
Yeah, that's great info. Great advice. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We will put together the recording and get it off to you. And if we can be of any help, or feel free to reach out to any of us at any time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.